There's a bit of a punchline throughout the Bible where we say that women are the downfall of men. We have a number of examples of this. Adam's undone by Eve. Israelites are undone by the Moabite women. Samson, Delilah, David, Bathsheba, Solomon, 300 wives and 700 concubines is what takes away the kingdom from him. So there's this narrative out there that, there's a reason why God says women should be subservient to men, right? Because they're his ruination. But today I give you the opposite of that. Today I'm going to show you that it's not a one-sided deal here, that there are times in the Bible where the woman is the one who saves the man. This is going to be something different. Because it does happen, and it's all about the symbolism, of what women are. But in this week, it's the woman that saves the man. She lifts him up and makes him into a better person. This is the way it's supposed to be. This is the story of Jacob and his falling in love with Rachel. Now, this is the third week of our shift program. We've had week 1 where it's a shift of, what's the A word? Awareness, a shift of awareness, right? We had the inner and the outer conflict because the inner self and the outer self are not lined up together. Jacob's mother, Rebecca, says, if all is well, why do I feel this way? Because she's not in alignment. Week 2 was shift of perspective. It was Jacob's been a jerk, right? He's swindled his brother's inheritance. He's stolen the blessing. He's not been a particularly nice guy. He's fleeing for his life all alone in the desert, and God comes to him and says, you know what? You're not alone. You may feel like you're alone. You may look around and not see anything, but I am right here with you, and I'm going to watch over you wherever you go. Well, this week we have shift of focus. And the shift of focus, in my mind, this is like the Beauty and the Beast story. This is like what Disney could have used as their inspiration for this, because it's Jacob, he's a bit of a beast, but he falls in love with Rachel, who is a beautiful woman, and from this point, he starts to change his ways. Because up until this point in the story, it's always been about him. It's always been about him. He's focusing on what he can get out of life. He's looking for the way he can win the deal. He's looking for the way he can come out on top, whether it's right or wrong. Up to this point, nothing's really touched his heart. Nothing's really moved him. But this week, the Lord's going to use his magic to touch Jacob's heart and call him to something higher. We can see a little bit about where Jacob's at just by reading the first bit of scripture here. It's Genesis chapter 29. It says, Then Jacob continued on his journey and came to the land of the eastern peoples. There he saw a well in the open country with 3 flocks of sheep lying near it, because the flocks were watered from that well. This is the key part. The stone over the mouth of the well was large, and when all the flocks were gathered there, the shepherds would roll the stone away from the well's mouth and water the sheep. Then they would return to the stone to its place over the mouth of the well. Now, if you don't know any better, this just seems like telling the logistics of, 2000 BC shepherding, right? There's a stone over a well, not a big deal. But what Swedenborg tells us is that, well, actually, this is kind of a big deal symbolically. This is an indication of where Jacob is spiritually. When the well is closed over, well, what's the stone covering? Water, right? Water. Water is something that gives us life. So Jacob does not have access when he arrives to life-giving truth. Now, stone also is a symbol for truth, but it's a foundational truth. It's facts, figures. Jacob, he knows things, but he doesn't use them to give life. He's not using it for a spiritual perspective. This is what we kind of get from Secrets of Heaven 3769, the last reading in your order of service. It's telling us really about where Jacob is at when he arrives at this place. It says, to the extent that someone is under the influence of self-love and love of the world, and of the desires that go with these, the word to him is closed up. Ah, right, there's a stone over the well. So what is that saying about Jacob? He is under the influence of self-love and love of the world. For those loves have self as the end in view, an end which fosters natural light but extinguishes heavenly light. As a result, people see clearly the things that belong to self and the world, but nothing whatever of those that belong to the Lord and his kingdom. Right? Jacob's not seeing the Lord's kingdom when he's saying, hey brother, I'll sell you some stew for a birthright. Right? That's not the Lord's kingdom right there. That's the earthly kingdom. He should have been a pal and said to his brother, sure, I'll help you out. Stew's on the house today. You've been out in the fields. But no, he squeezes his brother. When this is so, they may indeed read the word, but their end in view is the increase of personal position and wealth, or that they may be seen by others, or else they read it because it is the done thing, and therefore merely from force of habit, or they read it as religious duty, but without any amendment of life in view. To these people, the word has in different ways become closed up. There are plenty of people who fit this category, right? The word is closed. They don't see the word for what it is. They see it as an old Jewish history book. But if you look at it, come at it from the right point of view, of trying to be a better person, the word opens up. This is a shift. This is a shift of state. Seeing it for what it really is and not what it appears to be. Because if you just read this text, it's just about watering sheep. Well, who cares about that? Right? No. This is about where are you on your path. And Jacob is literally on a journey at this point. And what I want to do here is I'm going to introduce another character, because I do like this idea of having some testimonial in services. And this is a story. We don't have a video clip of this. This is a guy who wrote his story online. And it's also a story about falling in love, but this guy, as we can see, is also like Jacob at the beginning. And it's perhaps a modern example of what this can look like. He writes, I met a woman at a casino one night. I came on strong, hitting on her relentlessly. I really loved the way she looked and her sweet, almost naive demeanor. I kind of instantly felt like this is it. Like she's the one. Not just a hookup, not a fling, not a girlfriend. Like I immediately kind of made the decision that I'm going to stay with this girl forever and ever, for better and worse. She is my ball and chain from now on. My mind was made up within seconds. And I had this weird confidence about it that I've never had before or since. I was straight up with her right away. I told her that I'm not employed. And not just temporarily, but like permanently unemployed forever. I'd had a job before. It was a good job, but I hated it so much, despite it being a relatively low-stress job for a good company. It made me think, I don't ever want a job. I'm going to take a different route in life. How this was going to work, I don't know. I didn't really think it through. This girl was like, that's okay. I'm a simple girl. I don't care about all that stuff. And something about her foreign accent and ridiculously warm demeanor and sweet face made me believe her. I was stupidly like, yeah, cool. We'll just be poor and have as much fun as possible until we die. Where is this guy's head at? Right? He's in it for himself. He's in it for a good time. And, I have this feeling that if he were to roll up to the word, that well would be closed for him too. He's not approaching the word for amendment. He's approaching life for a good time. Give me the facts and figures to make a good deal. If we switch back to Jacob, it says, Jacob asks the shepherds, this is verse 4, my brothers, where are you from? "We're from Haran," they replied. "Well, do you know Laban, Nahor's grandson?" "Yes, we know him," they answered. And Jacob asked them, "Is he well?" "Well, yes, he is. And here comes his daughter Rachel with the sheep." Now you got to remember, we highlighted last week in the service that Jacob was running for his life, which was true. But we touched on class on Wednesday, but Jacob was also sent out of town to go find a wife, because those Canaanite women were an abhorrence to his father. So yeah, Esau's trying to get you, but he is on a mission to go get a wife. So, hey, here comes his daughter Rachel. All right, this is great. This is where I'm supposed to be. "Look," he said, "the sun is still high. It's not time for the flocks to be gathered. Water the sheep and take them back to pasture." "Oh, we can't until all the flocks are gathered and the stone has been rolled away from the mouth of the well." "Oh, then we will water the sheep." And while he was still talking with them, Rachel came with her father's sheep, for she was a shepherd. When Jacob saw Rachel, daughter of his uncle Laban, and Laban's sheep, he went over and rolled the stone away from the mouth of the well and watered his uncle's sheep. Then Jacob kissed Rachel and began to weep aloud. He had told Rachel that he was a relative of her father and a son of Rebekah. So she ran and told her father. So we'll pause again right there, because this is a shift. The well is now open. What motivates us to work on our spiritual life? When do you decide, okay, I'm going to actually try to be a better person? Something that often causes people to change is a realization that what they're doing right now isn't actually working. Hey, this isn't paying off. Jacob has to leave Canaan. Why? Because something's not working. His brother is out to get him. What's not working in Canaan? Oh, he doesn't have a wife. He's in the wrong place. I got to go somewhere different. And so far, he's been mostly focused on the whole survival side of things. But he's also at a place where he realizes there is something more. Right? He's on for something more. He's after Rachel, who is going to change his life forever. Rachel represents not just a desire to know how to be a better person. Rachel represents the desire to be a better person. And that's what women often represent in Scripture. It's a desire to be something different than we are right now. Sometimes those women aren't good for us, and sometimes they are very good for us. Because Rachel is this desire to learn a truth so that it can be applied. Right? Jacob doesn't just bring water up from the well and say, okay, got it. What does he do? He feeds the sheep. What are sheep? Well, sheep are symbols of innocence. Now, a lot of times in the world today, we talk about innocence in terms of like almost ignorance, childlike ignorance, right? They don't know anything. It's cute when they say something silly because, oh, they just didn't know. Ha, that was really funny. There's an innocence to it. But what the new church teaches is that innocence really is about a willingness to follow the Lord. That's true innocence. So in this story, what's happening? Jacob, selfish guy, survivor, sees the girl. Wow, that's the kind of person I want to be, is what that is a picture of. I see a vision of myself that I would like to be like. Now I'm willing to roll off that stone, access life-giving truth, right? Jesus says to the woman at the well, hey, this is living water I'm giving you. And he feeds it to sheep. He's feeding a willingness to follow the Lord. To be like to get that goal, to be that place, I've got to do what? I've got to be willing to follow the Lord. That's what's going on in this story. It's a shift of focus for real. Suddenly, instead of trying to make deals and whatnot and come out on top, he's like, you know what? I'm going to do what the Lord is asking me to. So the rest of the story finishes up. It says, verse 13, as soon as Laban heard the news about Jacob, his sister's son, he hurried to meet him. He embraced him and kissed him and brought him to his home, and there Jacob told him all these things. Then Laban said to him, "You are my own flesh and blood." After Jacob had stayed with him a whole month, Laban said to him, "Just because you're a relative of mine, should you work for me for nothing? Tell me what your wages should be." Now Laban had two daughters. The name of the older was Leah, and the name of the younger was Rachel. Leah had weak eyes, but Rachel had a lovely figure and was beautiful. Jacob was in love with Rachel and said, "I will work for you for 7 years in return for your younger daughter Rachel." Laban said, "It's better that I give her to you than some other man. Stay here with me." So Jacob served 7 years to get Rachel, but they seemed like only a few days to him because of his love for her. You think Jacob was a different person over those 7 years? Think that maybe he, maybe not initially, was instantly transformed, but you can imagine that from the time that started to the time that ends, at 7 years, he's a different person because he's pursuing something better. And spoiler alert, we know that when he leaves Laban, he goes and he wants to make amends with his brother Esau, and he throws all these gifts and stuff at him. He's a different guy. He's no longer trying to win over Esau. He's not trying to, come ahead. He's trying to make amends. He's doing something different. The chase for Rachel changes him. And likewise, in our little story of the guy hunting the girl at the casino, he's a changed man. When the girl says, "That's okay that you're unemployed and what, I don't care about this stuff," he says, "Turns out that was total lies." Total lies. She wasn't a simple girl who didn't care about those things. In fact, she was from very wealthy circles. As I got to know her, I found out that the 10 richest people I would ever meet, I met through her. He's like, I'm talking real millionaires, people with hundreds of millions and at least one billionaire. Yeah, she was from a third world country, but it certainly didn't mean she was some villager from a shanty town. She was practically royalty with very expensive tastes. Here I was, I thought she was this naive simpleton. But when I told her I was a bum and broke, she said it didn't worry her. But what she really meant was, yeah, not for long. What you think you are is irrelevant. I own you now, and I will make you into whatever I want. I think it might be overstating it, but he says, then she just strategically changed me over the following years. She sent me to psychiatrists. She talked me into going out there and just doing things. Eventually, I became a father. Before I knew it, I was equipped with drive and ambition for the first time. Above all, I had a real career that I actually enjoyed. I didn't dream it was possible to like your job. And I just got this tunnel vision of focus. And we're still on that path 10 years later. I'm still kind of confused by what kind of village black magic voodoo she used on me to completely change my life. But she completely changed me as a person. Sometimes I think her methods were questionable, but the end result, I'm happy. There are a lot of stories out there where guys will say, my woman changed me for the better. And it doesn't mean we do everything the women ask us. It doesn't mean we do everything, but it does mean they change us for the better. And this is the process that Jacob goes through. And what I note here is we see it's 7 years. We think, well, gee, that's kind of a long time, right? 7 years, long time. It is. He ended up working 14 years for her in the end. But what I think is 7 it's about holy, right? 7 is a number that represents holiness in life. So Jacob's love for her isn't just about opening up a well. It's about engaging in a sacred process. Even though the original intention was to go to Haran for a short time to outstay Esau's anger, he stays there for 14 years because he's deeply engaged in this process. It says it only seems like a few years for him, or a few days for him. And sometimes that's the way spiritual work can feel. When we get really excited about a project, we can see time fly by. But that's not often how it appears when we're doing the hard work of trying to be a better person. In the end, it's a holy process, though. It's a holy and sacred process that's supposed to transcend time. This is where I get back to the whole idea. This is a Beauty and the Beast story. If you've ever seen the original one, the 1990s, not the new live action one, if you see this, that's what this story was. A cranky old beast stuck in a castle, and a beautiful woman comes, and what does she do? She changes him. Slowly, not 7 years slowly, but it happens. Because eventually the guy sees that she's, not to be afraid of, and he sees the person he can be. And that's what the part of this program is about this week. It's that shift of focus. Seeing something beautiful, seeing not just the struggle in your life and identifying where things aren't right, but identifying that's where I want to go. That's where I want to be. That is the shift of focus. Amen.